So, I already filmed this video when I was looking all cute, but somehow, some way, it got deleted. This is like my life doing videos on my phone, so I'm gonna redo it for you. So, let's get started. So, I've seen so many of these videos on YouTube. My traumatic, awful birth story. I almost died. I am here to tell you that there is such a thing as a positive birth story. It doesn't happen to everybody, and in fact, I feel very blessed. But I am here, if you are interested, to talk about my positive birth story. My little boy, named Simeon Jack Reese Wancha, was born on December 31st of 2018. He was a New Year's Eve baby. I'm bad with time. For me, everything is the other day. So, the other day, I believe it was a Friday, as we're grocery shopping, I just feel so just heavy and so much pressure. And I just felt a little bit different. On the phone with his mom while we were grocery shopping, and I was just saying, I'm like, I don't know, like I'm feeling pretty weird. So we go grocery shopping, we get all that done. I'm so glad we did that because, of course, that weekend I had my baby, but I think I worked that Saturday. So that was the next day, and I was telling my boss, I'm like, I don't know, I'm feeling a little labory. And he's like, no, you're not, because he wanted me to work the day after the New Year, because the bank, which is where I worked, is always so busy at that time. I'm like, I don't know. So that was a Saturday, and it was Sunday morning. So Sunday morning at about 4 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden my eyes just bing, and I wasn't in any pain or anything, but for some reason I just, woke up out of a deep sleep. My contractions start happening. So I don't know if I was contracting while I was sleeping, but once I woke up and I sat there for a little bit, my contractions started. And they weren't like painful at all. It just felt like a period cramp. Hold on. I just peed a little. Damn it. Mommy life. My contractions started and it felt like a very sudden period cramp. So it's like everything's fine, and then all of a sudden you have a period cramp and it lasts for a minute and then it just dissipates and goes away. That was a weird sensation, but I didn't think anything of it because I didn't want to get excited. So then I just lay there in bed. They become more frequent. It's like, kind of every certain amount of time. I hadn't timed them yet. I was having this minute-long period pain. I'm like, So I just decided to download a contraction, counter app or whatever, timer app, which I hadn't even done because I was like, oh, I'm a week away, I got time. Well, no, I did not. So anyways, I downloaded one and I started to time my contractions, and they were 5 minutes apart and 1 minute long. And my doctor had said that to be admitted, it was like the 5-1 run rule. So 5 minutes apart, 1 minute long for an hour. And so it had been about a half hour, and then I finally decided to wake up David because I'm like, okay, I think something's going down here. So I wake him up and I'm like, I've been having contractions for a half hour. And he's like, nah, and I'm like, yes, huh? So we decided to time them for another half hour just to be sure. And of course, 5 minutes apart, 1 minute long. So at that point, we decided to call the advice nurse. And she said, okay, I want you to take a bath. I want you to eat some food, drink some water, and go for another hour. And if they don't go away, then call me back. So I do all the things. I time them. They're still 5 minutes apart, 1 minute long. And so we call her back an hour later, and she's like, okay, come in. I had the hospital bag packed. Thankfully, I think I did it a week before that, so I was really late on the game, but I did it. But there's a few things that I wanted to put in there, and David hadn't packed his hospital bag, and we hadn't put the car seat in the car yet, because it's funny, because that night I had told him put the car seat in the car. And he's like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Well, we didn't have it tomorrow. So he gets his bag all packed. I get my bag finished. I do my makeup because first impressions are everything. David's dad actually came over and helped put in the car seat, and it took them so long to put in the car seat because things have definitely changed since like we were youngins, you know. At this point, I'm kind of in my living room, sitting on the couch, like still contracting, and these contractions are more intense, but I still would not call them painful. But I did find them more uncomfortable sitting than I did standing. So I was kind of standing and leaning against the couch and just contracting, and I could talk through them. They weren't really painful, they were just uncomfortable. And I have pretty intense periods anyways, so this ain't no thing. So I would say we arrived at the hospital probably about 8 o'clock, maybe 8:30 in the morning, because that's how long it had taken for all these events to take place. And so we get there, and I got checked, and let me tell you, that hurt like a son of a gun. Like, they get their 3 freaking fingers and they shove them so far up your hoo-ha, I swear they can touch your eyeballs. And that hurt. Like, my contractions were nothing compared to getting checked. So I got checked, and I think she said I was a 2.5 centimeters dilated. And so she told me, okay, I need you to walk around the hospital for an hour and then come back, because they wanted me to become more dilated so they could admit me. And I think they can admit you at 3. I think. I'm not sure. So I walk around for another hour, and I come back, I get checked again, and I'm at like a 3 or a 3.5 or something like that. And she's like, are you doing fine? And I'm like, yeah. So she's like, okay, keep walking. So I was like, okay. And so at that point, I had contacted everybody that I needed to contact that this were a go. So me and David got breakfast in the cafeteria, but I just didn't feel like eating because I was contracting, and it kind of makes you nauseous. But let me tell you, just a little tip and trick for you: eat. If they tell you that you're allowed to eat, freaking eat, because there will be a certain point where they will tell you you can't eat anymore, and then you're freaking starving. So I should have taken advantage of it, even though I was nauseous, but I didn't. Anyways, so my whole family shows up, and now they have to walk with me. So I've got my dad, my stepmom, and my sister and David all walking around the hospital with me. My other 2 sisters show up, and all the boyfriends show up, and then my mom shows up. She drove 3 hours to finally get to the hospital. And so everyone like takes turns walking with me. And I think I walked till about 5 o'clock in the evening. So at 5 o'clock in the evening, they checked me. I hear a baby. Okay, so it was about 5 o'clock in the evening. They finally checked me, and I was at like a 5.5, I think. She's like, do you want to keep walking? And I'm like, no, I don't want to freaking keep walking. Like, I had been walking all day long. So I was just exhausted. I had been up since 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was just done walking. My contractions weren't even really painful. Okay, hello? Oh, that's a mean face. We're telling your story. Telling your story. I told them I didn't want to keep walking. So at this point, I laid in my bed, or in my hospital bed, and that actually made my contractions like very uncomfortable. I still would not call them painful. I would just call them quite uncomfortable. And when I laid down, it made them worse. So walking and talking to my family, like, and kind of distracting myself, made it so they didn't really hurt at all. I could talk through them, I could walk through them, but once I laid down, it made them worse. I don't know if it was like everything being all squished or whatever. So at this point, I couldn't talk through my contractions anymore. I had to kind of like breathe, and then when it was done, I could talk, and I was my happy normal self. So I got to about 6 centimeters dilated. I wanted to make sure that I got an epidural because I really wanted one. I didn't want to go through childbirth naturally. If that's your thing, you do you, boo. I'm like proud of you, yay women, but I just was not about that life. And I have heard so many horror stories of women like waiting till the very last minute to get an epidural, and then they don't get one because it's too late. So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen to me. I still wasn't in a lot of pain or anything. I just wanted to make sure that I got one before it was too late. So I asked for one. About an hour later, the anesthesiologist comes, and they actually don't let David watch for that. He had to sit in front of me and kind of talk to me while they were behind me doing their thing. The epidural wasn't painful because they give you a shot of numbing stuff in your back. It was just scary because I knew what they were doing. I knew they had a needle and they were sticking it in my back, and it freaked me out. So that was the only issue, was just that I was scared and it was freaking me out. Plus, you have to stay very, very still, and keep in mind, you're still contracting. Like, you're still having contractions, and you have to sit, like, hugging a pillow and kind of hunched over. So he poked me once, and he didn't get it in the right spot, and I was like, no! Like, I went through all of this, you know, like, turmoil in my brain, and then he didn't even get the right spot. So he had to poke me again. So he pokes me again, he gets the right spot, they put this like sticker over your entire back. So it's this huge back sticker, and it holds all the tubes and stuff in place. And so they push the button the first time for me, and they're like, okay, in like 15 minutes it will take effect, and every time the green light comes on, you can press it again. So every time the green light turned on, I pressed it again. And about a half hour later, I didn't feel any discomfort, I didn't feel any pain, but I could still feel my legs. I could feel if someone was like touching them or tickling them, I could feel it. I just couldn't feel pain. It was like the most crazy thing ever. And I actually felt very blessed because I know a lot of women who get epidurals who can't feel absolutely anything. Either A, they can't feel anything, so they can't feel the push. It's just like they're a limp noodle. Or B, the epidural doesn't work, or it only works on one side, and so they're still in pain. So I felt very, very blessed that the epidural worked. At that point, I believe it was like 10 o'clock at night. I told David to get some sleep, just so he would have energy when the baby was actually coming. So he was asleep on a little cot, and then my mom was in the rocking chair just chatting with me. We were watching movies, and I wanted to sleep, and I kept resting my eyes, but the epidural made me kind of jittery, almost like when you drink coffee on an empty stomach. And so I couldn't really sleep, but I kept trying to rest my eyes and just get some rest. At some point during the night, I don't remember when it was, they come in and they say, we just kind of want to speed things along because we really want you to have a baby soon, so we're going to give you some Pitocin. So I was like, okay, whatever, sure. So they gave me Pitocin, and that definitely did speed things up because my contractions had actually become kind of irregular, even though I was like 6 centimeters or 7 or however much I was at the time. They gave me the Pitocin, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and they checked me, and I was 10 centimeters dilated. And it kind of made me freak out because I was just under the impression that once you get to 10, it's like go time and you need to push the baby out now. But they're like, no, since you're doing fine, you're not in any pain, and you're okay, we're just going to let you keep kind of letting your body do its thing and laboring on its own. We'll come back in a little bit and do some practice pushes. And I was like, okay, whatever. So they let me keep laboring, and then they come in and they're like, okay, the doctor was like, I'm going to check to see how dilated you are, I guess, and look to see if I should break your water. And I was like, okay. Well, he didn't just look to see, he just freaking broke it. Like, he just went for it, and David was asleep, and he like wanted to be there for that part. They broke my water, and I was like, okay, Mom, wake David up now, you know. So they wake him up, and I tell him what's going on, and he's like, I missed it. Like, I feel like I missed all the action. I'm like, well, you didn't miss all of it. So then they're like, let's do some practice pushes. So once I got to 10 centimeters, I had David text Dad and my stepmom and my sisters, because they had actually left, because they're like, we'll come back, you know, when you're more progressed and the baby's coming. They had stayed there all day in the lobby watching the Seahawks game, and they finally decided to leave. So they text them, and they were like on their way. And by the way, my dad got a speeding ticket on the way to the hospital because he didn't want to miss his grandson's birth. So I find that so funny. So they broke my water. They're like, let's do some practice pushes. And so I start practice pushing. And by the way, I have my 3 sisters, my mom, my stepmom, David's mom, and David all in the room with me. They didn't have a limit on how many people could be in there, so I was just like, sure, the more the merrier, I don't care. I know a lot of moms or like women who give birth are just like, everybody out, but I don't care. I start practice pushing, and she's like, this is no practice, this baby's coming out now, let's go. And I'm like, what? So they call the doctor, all these nurses come in, and it's like go time. She's kind of teaching me how to push. She kept poking the area between my booty and my hoo-ha and said, push here, because you actually want to push like you're pooping. And I know that sounds yucky, but it's true. And some women actually do poop while they're giving birth, which is not anything to be ashamed of. I didn't, but it's not anything to be ashamed of. There's a lot of pressure down there. So she kept poking me there. That was very helpful to know where to push. And so I'm just pushing. And so David is holding one leg, the nurse is holding the other leg, the doctor's kind of looking, and they have you like lift up your shoulders and kind of buckle down, and then for 10 seconds you have to hold your breath and push. I would push, and then I could feel his head come out, and they would be like, oh my gosh, his head! And then they'd put my legs down when I was done pushing, and he would suck back in. That's so exhausting, because I was still in absolutely no pain, working so hard, like, and breaking a sweat, holding my breath and doing this hard pushing. And so I was upset that I kept losing my progress. I asked her, can you keep my legs up in between pushes? And she's like, yeah, well, you just thought that you might be in pain or that you're uncomfortable. I'm like, no, I feel nothing. And keep my legs up. I don't want to lose my progress. I continue pushing, and it is honestly very exhausting. Plus, I had major heartburn. So I keep buckling down and putting my chin to my chest, and I kind of felt like I was going to puke because my heartburn was so bad. If you're pregnant, you understand. Good. So I think I pushed for like a half hour, and I was in no pain. It was just physically exhausting. His entire head popped out, and then the doctor's like, okay, push. And so then I push, and his shoulders come out, and then the doctor's like, wait, stop. And I'm like, what? And he's like, okay, reach down and pull your baby out. What? He's like, yeah, reach down, pull your baby out. Oh. So I was like, okay. So I reached down, I put my hands like under his little armpits, and I pulled him out. And there you were. He's smiling right now. There you were. So at, I believe it was 3:46 in the morning on December 31st, my little baby was born. My little baby. It was you. pulling him out and like placing him on my chest was the most surreal moment ever. He wasn't here and now he is here. I have wanted to meet him for so long and he's now here. And then I also was just flabbergasted that my body could even do that. I couldn't even believe. I was like, I just pushed a human out of my hoo-ha. Out of my hoo-ha. You know? So it was just a crazy experience. It was crazy. Crazy. It was such a wonderful time, like the actual giving birth part. Maybe someday I will do another video on what the hospital stay was like. That was horrendous and that was hell and I like never want to do it again. But right when I gave birth to him and I pulled him on my chest, the doctor was like, okay, how many more do you want? And I think he was expecting me to say like never again or something, because I'm sure that's what women normally say. But I was like, give me 10 more. It was very positive. It was a wonderful experience. And I had so many people like, come on, Kenna, you can do it. And then my freaking sister's like taking pictures of my hoo-ha. I'm like, get out of there. Get out of there. Out of there. But my little boy, which you saw earlier in this video, but this is him. He's so cute. He's almost 4 months now. Almost 4 months. That was my positive birth story. So I hope you enjoyed it. And by the by, I don't want any negative comments in this video of like, oh my gosh, you got an epidural, or you didn't do it all natural, or blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't want to hear any of that. Birth is birth. If you birthed a baby, you birthed a baby. Doesn't matter if it's C-section, epidural, natural, freaking water birth, birth in a taxi, birth in a forest, birth in a Chick-fil-A. Did you hear that? There's a girl that gave birth in Chick-fil-A and they gave her free Chick-fil-A for life. Free Chick-fil-A for life. We missed out on such a good opportunity. You did. Anyways, subscribe to my channel and I will see you in my next video. Say bye-bye. Say mwah. That's close, I guess.